Why I stopped supporting my parents after they chose my lazy brother over me. Best Reddit. Welcome to Silent Wars. In today's video, we'll dive into one of the best Reddit stories that will leave you stunned and full of emotions. These unforgettable moments from Reddit are packed with twists and shocking truths. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Silent Wars for more amazing content. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with all the latest stories and videos. Jake had always been the responsible one in his family. For years, he had been the one keeping the family afloat, paying the mortgage, buying groceries, and handling house repairs. His brother Eric, on the other hand, had done absolutely nothing. He was the lazy son who lived off the family without any obligations, choosing to wait for life to hand him everything on a silver platter. Despite this, Jake never hesitated to help. He loved his parents and felt a duty to support them, even though his efforts were never acknowledged or reciprocated. For 5 years, Jake had been paying for his parents' house, and even though he worked tirelessly to maintain their lifestyle, his brother was doing nothing but existing in their home. It was Jake who ensured that they had everything they needed, and in return, his parents seemed to take his contributions for granted. They pampered Eric, the younger son, who was entitled and lazy, never bothering to lift a finger. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the emotional and physical toll it took on Jake. Every bill that was paid, every repair made, felt like an investment that would never be acknowledged. Everything changed when Jake discovered his parents' will. It wasn't even a dramatic, heartfelt conversation. No, it was pure coincidence. While helping his father with some paperwork, Jake stumbled upon the will and opened it, thinking it was just another financial document. What he found shook him to his core. His parents had left everything: the house, their savings, the property to Eric. There was not a single mention of Jake, except for a vague statement about loving both sons equally. The reality hit him like a ton of bricks. He had been the one to ensure they were comfortable, the one who took care of all their financial responsibilities. And yet, it was Eric, the one who had done nothing, who would inherit everything. Jake felt a surge of anger and betrayal. His father had been unapologetic, dismissing Jake's feelings with a casual, "It's complicated." His mother, instead of offering an apology, tried to justify it, saying Jake didn't need the inheritance because he had a good job and was independent, while Eric needed help. It was in that moment that Jake realized just how little they valued him. For years, he had been the one holding everything together, and now, they were ready to reward Eric's laziness. This was the final straw. Jake left his parents' house, and for the first time in years, he stopped being their financial safety net. When his parents tried to reach out for money again, Jake stood his ground. He refused to help them, telling them that if Eric was going to inherit everything, then Eric could take care of their bills. His refusal sent shockwaves through the family. His parents and Eric couldn't understand why Jake wouldn't just continue doing what he had always done. They tried to guilt him, accusing him of being selfish and abandoning them in their time of need. But for Jake, it was no longer about money. It was about standing up for himself and demanding the respect he deserved. The situation escalated when Jake's parents took to social media, publicly shaming him. They painted him as a villain, the selfish son who refused to help his family. Eric joined in, portraying himself as the loving son who understood the true meaning of family. Jake couldn't let this go unanswered. He decided to set the record straight. On his own Facebook page, he shared his side of the story, explaining how he had always been there for his parents and how Eric had been enabled to do nothing. He talked about how his parents had chosen Eric over him, despite all his sacrifices, and how he was finally choosing himself over their manipulation. Jake's post garnered support from friends and relatives who had never fully understood the situation. They reached out to him, offering their sympathy and admiration for his courage. But of course, his parents and Eric weren't happy about it. They called him a traitor, accusing him of airing the family's dirty laundry. But Jake stood firm. He had spent years being manipulated and used, and he was finally breaking free from that toxic cycle. The weight of the situation lifted from his shoulders, and for the first time in a long while, he felt liberated. Jake had made a decision to prioritize his well-being and happiness, and no matter how his family reacted, he wasn't going to let them manipulate him anymore. They had made their choice, and now it was time for him to live his life on his own terms. Jake had always been the dependable one in his family. For years, he had shouldered the responsibility of taking care of his parents, covering their mortgage, running errands, and handling repairs. Meanwhile, his brother Eric, the younger son, had done nothing. No work, no responsibilities. Eric lived a life of luxury, essentially waiting for things to be handed to him. Despite this, Jake continued to support his family, putting in hours of effort to make sure they were comfortable, while Eric took advantage of their generosity. Jake didn't mind helping his parents. After all, family was supposed to support one another, right? He never expected anything in return, believing that the sacrifices he made were simply part of being a good son. Yet, the more he gave, the less he received. Jake's parents, especially his mother, always seemed to favor Eric, brushing off Jake's contributions as if they were insignificant. It was clear that they were enabling Eric's lazy behavior, and he became the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one who was promised everything, despite offering nothing in return. One day, while helping his father with some paperwork at their home, Jake accidentally discovered his parents' will. It was an ordinary day, but the moment Jake saw the document, his stomach dropped. The will was clear: everything, from the house to their savings, was going to Eric. There was not a single mention of Jake, except for a vague phrase expressing love for both sons equally. This revelation felt like a punch to the gut. He had spent years working to make sure his parents' needs were met, and yet, they had decided to leave everything to Eric, the son who had done nothing to deserve it. The betrayal Jake felt in that moment was overwhelming. His father, seeing Jake's reaction, brushed it off with an excuse that, "It's complicated." There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the years Jake had spent financially supporting them. His mother tried to justify their decision, telling him that he didn't need the inheritance because he was independent, while Eric needed the help. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. After everything he had done for them, they were essentially telling him that he didn't matter. He had been their financial safety net. But now, when it came time to distribute their wealth, he was nothing more than an afterthought. In the days that followed, Jake stopped helping his parents. No more paying their mortgage, no more buying groceries, no more taking care of their bills. He decided that enough was enough. He couldn't continue to play the role of the responsible son, while Eric, the entitled one, reaped the benefits. When his parents contacted him for money, Jake refused. He told them that Eric could take care of it now that he had inherited everything. His parents' reaction was swift. His mother tried to guilt him into helping, claiming that family takes care of one another, while his father accused him of being selfish. But Jake knew better. He had been there for them for years, and now they were demanding more. Things escalated when Jake's parents took to social media. They posted passive-aggressive messages, accusing Jake of abandoning them, and even tagged him in posts that painted him as the villain. Eric joined in, claiming that Jake didn't understand what family was about, and that he was being selfish by not helping them. Jake knew he couldn't let these lies stand. He responded with his own post, setting the record straight. He explained how he had been the one supporting his parents for years, how he had always been there for them, and how Eric had never lifted a finger. He made it clear that family should be based on mutual respect, not one-sided obligation. The response was swift. Some family members reached out to Jake, offering their support, while others sided with his parents, believing the narrative that Jake was selfish. But Jake had made his decision. He wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. He was done being their financial safety net, done being taken for granted. His post wasn't just about defending himself, it was about reclaiming his life and his dignity. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of freedom. Jake had given everything he could to his family, but in the end, they had chosen Eric. He wasn't going to continue sacrificing himself for people who didn't appreciate him. From that moment on, Jake vowed to live his life on his own terms, surrounded by people who valued him for who he was, not what he could give them. His parents' decision to cut him out of the will had been the final straw, but it also gave him the clarity he needed to break free. He was done, and for the first time, he felt at peace with his decision. Jake had always been the reliable one. For years, he took care of his parents' needs, from paying the mortgage to running errands and fixing things around the house. He supported them financially, emotionally, and physically, while his younger brother, Eric, did nothing. Eric, a 28-year-old man, was completely irresponsible. He had never worked, never contributed in any way, yet his parents continued to coddle him. Jake didn't mind taking on the responsibility. After all, he loved his family, and he believed that helping them was his duty. But over time, things began to feel unequal. He was always the one sacrificing, always the one putting in effort, while Eric got by doing nothing. One day, Jake stumbled upon a discovery that would forever change his relationship with his family. While helping his father with some paperwork at their home, he accidentally came across the will. The moment he saw it, his heart sank. In the will, everything, every asset, every dollar was left to Eric. Jake's stomach churned. He had been the one paying their bills, ensuring their comfort, fixing the house, and doing everything in his power to keep them happy. And yet, despite all of that, his parents had decided that Eric was the one deserving of everything. There was no mention of Jake, except for a few vague phrases expressing love for both of their sons. Jake was left to feel like a mere afterthought. His hands shook as he read the document, his mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. How long had this plan been in place? Had his parents always seen him as nothing more than their financial safety net, a resource to be used and drained without ever being truly appreciated? His emotions ranged from anger to heartbreak as he tried to process what had just happened. When Jake confronted his father, he was met with an apology that felt empty and insincere. His father tried to explain that it was complicated, but Jake wasn't satisfied with that explanation. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand why his years of sacrifice had meant so little. His mother, when she saw the will, didn't offer any comfort either. Instead, she told him he didn't need the inheritance because he had a good job and was independent. Meanwhile, Eric, the one who had never worked or helped in any way, was being handed everything. Jake was furious, and for the first time, he decided to stop helping. He walked away, leaving his parents to fend for themselves. He stopped paying their bills, stopped taking care of the house, and stopped being the one they relied on. His parents tried to contact him, but Jake stood firm. When they messaged him about the property taxes, he simply replied that Eric could handle it now, as everything was going to him. His mother and father, sensing that their usual tactic of guilt-tripping wasn't working, continued to text him, but Jake refused to be manipulated again. Things took a turn when Eric entered the picture. Instead of offering any support or understanding, Eric texted Jake, accusing him of being dramatic and selfish for not helping the family out. Eric's complete lack of self-awareness was maddening. He didn't seem to understand that it wasn't just about money, it was about respect, about the years Jake had spent supporting a family that never appreciated him. Jake refused to back down and told Eric that he was the one who should be taking responsibility now. As the days went on, Jake's parents continued to pressure him. They texted him demanding money, claiming they would lose the house if he didn't help. But Jake wasn't swayed. He had finally realized that he had been nothing more than a doormat for his family. He had spent his life sacrificing for them, and now, when they had nothing left to take, they were trying to guilt him into continuing to provide. In the end, Jake decided to block his family's numbers and shut them out of his life. He was done being the person they relied on when it was convenient for them, only to be discarded when they no longer needed him. The realization that his parents had chosen Eric, the lazy and entitled son, over him, the one who had always been there for them, was the final straw. Jake made it clear that he was no longer willing to play that role. The emotional toll of years of manipulation had taken its toll, and now he was ready to choose himself for once. Jake's story is one of self-realization and reclaiming one's worth. For years, he had put his family's needs before his own, but he finally understood that his value was not determined by how much he could give or how much they demanded. In choosing to step back and prioritize his own well-being, Jake found freedom. It was a painful decision, but one that ultimately allowed him to take control of his own life and live on his terms. Jake had spent the better part of his life making sacrifices for his family, always putting their needs first. For years, he was the one who made sure the bills were paid, the house was in good condition, and that his parents were comfortable, all while his younger brother, Eric, did nothing. Eric, a 28-year-old man, never worked, never contributed in any way, and seemed to feel entitled to everything without lifting a finger. Yet, despite Jake's constant support, it was Eric who always received the praise, the attention, and, as Jake would soon discover, the inheritance. Jake's life took a dramatic turn one day when he uncovered something that shattered his perception of his family. While helping his father with some paperwork, Jake came across the will. What he found left him feeling sick to his stomach. The entire estate, every penny, every asset was going to Eric. There was no mention of Jake, aside from a few words about loving both sons equally, which seemed more like a hollow statement than anything sincere. Jake had been the one ensuring his parents' bills were paid, helping with groceries, and fixing things around the house, all while his brother did nothing. And yet, it was Eric who was going to inherit everything. Jake couldn't believe what he was reading. After everything he had done for them, this was how they repaid him? He confronted his father, but the conversation only fueled his anger and confusion. His father dismissed his concerns with a vague excuse, saying it was complicated and offered no real apology. His mother, when confronted with the will, told him that he didn't need the inheritance because he had a good job and was independent. Meanwhile, Eric, who had never contributed, was being handed everything. The injustice of it all hit Jake hard. He had been the one sacrificing for years, and yet he was being treated as an afterthought. Jake made a decision that day. He was done. He stopped helping his parents. He no longer paid the mortgage or took care of the house. For the first time in years, he stopped being the one they could rely on. His parents, of course, didn't take kindly to this. They expected Jake to continue supporting them, but when they realized he wasn't backing down, they started texting him, demanding money. His mother texted him about the property taxes, but Jake simply responded, "I'm sure Eric will handle it since the house is his." The backlash came quickly. Eric, with his usual sense of entitlement, texted Jake, accusing him of being dramatic and selfish. Eric's complete lack of understanding of Jake's feelings only made things worse. Jake was angry, but he wasn't about to let his brother's manipulation work on him. He had already made it clear Eric was the one who needed to step up now. His parents continued to text him, guilt-tripping him and trying to make him feel responsible. But Jake, finally realizing how long he had been taken advantage of, refused to give in. One day, his parents even showed up at his apartment, demanding money as if he were their personal ATM. Jake had enough. He told them to leave, refusing to let them manipulate him any longer. His mother tried the usual guilt trip, claiming that family takes care of each other, but Jake wasn't buying it anymore. He had been the one taking care of them for years, and now, when it was time to take responsibility for their actions, they were trying to make him the villain. The situation escalated when Jake's parents and Eric started posting about him on social media, portraying him as the selfish one. Jake was painted as the son who refused to help his family in their time of need. But instead of responding with anger, Jake decided to tell his side of the story. He created a Facebook post to explain everything: how he had been the one supporting them all these years, how Eric had been the favored son, and how he had finally realized he was nothing more than a financial resource to them. Jake's post was powerful. It was the truth. And for the first time, he felt a sense of relief. He wasn't going to let his family's false narrative define him anymore. Jake's story is one of self-realization, growth, and reclaiming control of his life. For years, he had been the one to sacrifice, to give, and to support. But he finally understood that family isn't just about what you can give, it's about mutual respect, support, and fairness. Jake made the difficult decision to stop being the financial safety net for his family and to choose himself for once. His story is a reminder that sometimes, in order to move forward, we need to set boundaries, stand up for ourselves, and walk away from toxic relationships that drain us. It's never easy, but it's necessary for our well-being. Jake's life had always been a sacrifice. For years, he took on the role of the dependable son, always the one his parents relied on. While his younger brother Eric barely lifted a finger to help, Jake was constantly there paying the bills, helping with the house, and making sure his parents were taken care of. Eric, on the other hand, was a 28-year-old who never worked and was coddled by their parents, taking everything for granted. Despite the clear favoritism, Jake never complained. He just did what he believed was his duty as a son. But that all changed the day he found out about the will. Jake discovered the devastating truth completely by accident. One day, while helping his father with some paperwork, Jake came across the estate plan and the will. What he found inside made his heart drop. All of his parents' assets, including the house, their savings, and everything they had worked for, were going to Eric. Jake was left with nothing, not even a mention beyond a few vague statements about loving both sons equally. His hands trembled as he realized that after all the sacrifices he had made, his parents had decided to leave everything to the son who had done nothing for them. It was a crushing betrayal. Jake had been the one who ensured their bills were paid, that the house was in order, and that they never went hungry. And yet, it was Eric who was going to inherit everything. His father's casual dismissal of Jake's feelings only added to the hurt. When confronted, his father simply mumbled that it was complicated. His mother, too, tried to explain, saying that Jake didn't need the inheritance because he was already independent and had a good job. But to Jake, it was clear they had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were rewarding him with everything, while Jake was left to pick up the pieces. Jake's decision to stop helping his parents came shortly after. He realized that after everything he had done, they saw him only as a tool to support them, not as a son. He cut ties. He stopped paying the mortgage, stopped taking care of the house, and stopped answering their calls. For the first time, Jake stood up for himself. When his parents sent a cold message demanding money, Jake responded, "I'm sure Eric will handle it since the house is his now." This triggered a backlash from his family, with Eric accusing him of being dramatic and selfish, while his mother guilt-tripped him, saying family takes care of each other. But Jake wasn't fooled. He had been taking care of them for years, and now they were trying to make him feel responsible for their situation. The situation escalated when his parents showed up at his apartment demanding money in person. Jake's frustration reached a boiling point. They had crossed a line, showing up uninvited and treating him like an ATM. He told them to leave and refused to engage in their manipulative tactics. His parents didn't take kindly to this and, in true form, took their grievances to social media, painting Jake as the villain. They accused him of being selfish and abandoning them. But instead of letting their narrative control his life, Jake decided to tell his side of the story. He wrote a powerful post on Facebook, explaining how he had been the one to support his parents all these years, and how Eric had been the favorite son who did nothing to earn their trust. For the first time, Jake felt a sense of liberation. His post garnered support from friends and relatives who had witnessed his hard work and sacrifices. The truth was out, and Jake wasn't going to let his family manipulate him anymore. He had finally made the choice to put himself first. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. His story serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes setting boundaries and standing up for yourself is the best thing you can do for your mental and emotional well-being. Family isn't just about giving, it's about mutual respect and understanding. Jake learned that the hard way, but in the end, he was free. Jake had always been the dependable son. For years, he had taken care of his parents, making sure their bills were paid, the house was in order, and they never went hungry. He worked hard to support them, even while his younger brother Eric did absolutely nothing. Eric was lazy, entitled, and expected everything to be handed to him, yet their parents always favored him. Jake, on the other hand, was left to pick up the slack, sacrificing his own time, money, and energy to make sure his parents were comfortable. He didn't complain, he just did it because, in his mind, that's what family was supposed to do. But everything changed the day Jake stumbled upon his parents' will. It wasn't a dramatic revelation. He wasn't sitting down for a family meeting when the news came out. Instead, Jake found the will completely by accident while helping his father with some paperwork. As he flipped through the documents, he came across the estate plan, and what he read made his blood run cold. His parents had decided to leave everything, the house, their savings, their property, solely to Eric. There wasn't a single mention of Jake, except for a generic statement about how they loved both sons equally. Jake was crushed. He had spent years supporting them, paying their mortgage, running errands, and handling house repairs, while Eric had done nothing but lie around. And yet, it was Eric who would inherit everything. The betrayal was staggering. Jake confronted his father, who offered only a week, "It's complicated," as an excuse. His mother, when asked, explained that Jake didn't need the inheritance because he had a good job and was independent. Meanwhile, Eric, the lazy and entitled son, would get everything. His parents had spent years encouraging Eric's laziness, and now they were rewarding it by leaving him everything. It was a slap in the face to Jake, who had worked tirelessly to support them. That moment marked a turning point in Jake's life. He realized that his parents didn't see him as their son, they saw him as a source of financial support. They had been using him for years, and now they were giving everything to Eric. Jake made the difficult decision to stop helping them. He stopped paying their bills, stopped taking care of their house, and cut off all financial support. For the first time, he put himself first. His parents didn't take kindly to his decision. When the property taxes were due, they texted Jake, expecting him to step in and help, as he always had. But Jake refused. He texted back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his now." This was the moment his family began to panic. They tried to guilt-trip him, calling him selfish, and Eric joined in, accusing Jake of being a drama queen. But Jake didn't budge. He had given enough, and now it was time for his parents and brother to face the consequences of their actions. Things only escalated when Jake's parents showed up uninvited at his apartment, demanding money in person. They tried to manipulate him, but Jake stood firm. He told them to leave, refusing to give them another cent. The situation only worsened when they took to social media, painting Jake as the villain. They made it seem as though Jake was abandoning his family when, in reality, he had been the one who had been abandoned all along. In response, Jake took to Facebook, writing a lengthy post to set the record straight. He explained how he had always supported his parents, how he had paid their bills, and how he had been taken for granted. He finally declared that he would no longer be their financial safety net. He had done enough, and it was time for Eric to step up and take responsibility. Jake's post went viral among his family and friends, and for the first time, he felt liberated. People reached out to support him, offering their apologies for what he had been through. Jake's parents and Eric didn't take kindly to the post. They sent him angry messages, calling him a traitor and accusing him of ruining everything. But Jake didn't regret it for a second. He had finally taken a stand, and it felt freeing. He blocked their numbers and moved forward with his life. No longer would he be treated as their personal ATM, used only when they needed something from him. Jake's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-respect. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in order to protect your own mental and emotional well-being. No one should be treated as a tool or a resource for others to exploit. Family should be about love, respect, and reciprocity, not about one person constantly giving while the other takes. Jake made the choice to put himself first, and in doing so, he found his freedom. Jake's entire life had been a balancing act between fulfilling his role as the dependable son and trying to gain the love and appreciation he felt he deserved. For years, he had sacrificed his time, money, and energy to support his parents. He took care of their bills, handled home repairs, and even paid for their groceries, all while his younger brother, Eric, did nothing. Eric, the spoiled and entitled child, didn't work, didn't help with any household responsibilities, and expected everything to be handed to him. Yet, his parents continued to dote on him. Jake's devotion to his parents had always been unspoken. He believed that's what family did for one another. It was not until a fateful day, when he accidentally discovered his parents' will, that everything fell apart. While helping his father with paperwork, Jake came across the will in a stack of documents. What he read sent shockwaves through him. His parents had left everything to Eric: the house, their savings, and all their property. Jake, the one who had been their financial lifeline for years, was left with nothing. The will even included vague statements about their love for both sons, but it was clear Eric, the lazy one, was the favored child. The revelation of the will shattered Jake's perception of his relationship with his parents. His initial disbelief quickly turned into anger and betrayal. After all the years of sacrifice, all the nights he had spent making sure his parents were taken care of, his parents had decided to reward Eric's laziness and disregard for responsibility. He confronted his father, who offered a weak excuse that it's complicated. His mother, when questioned, explained that Jake didn't need the inheritance because he had a good job and was independent. They justified their decision by saying that Eric needed everything more. Jake was devastated. Determined to stand up for himself, Jake decided that enough was enough. He stopped providing for his parents. He stopped paying their bills, helping with the house, and offering financial support. For the first time, he put his own needs and well-being ahead of his family's demands. The silence from his parents was deafening at first, but Jake stood firm, refusing to be their personal ATM any longer. When his parents finally reached out to him, it was only to demand money. They sent cold, transactional messages, asking him to cover the property taxes, as if nothing had happened. Jake refused, replying that Eric could take care of it now, since the house and everything else was his. His parents didn't stop there. They tried to guilt-trip him, with his father calling him selfish, and his mother using the old guilt-laden line, "Family takes care of each other." Eric even jumped into the conversation, accusing Jake of overreacting and telling him to grow up. But Jake wasn't having it anymore. He made it clear to them that they had made their choice, and now they had to live with the consequences. The final straw came when his parents showed up uninvited at his apartment, demanding money in person. This was the moment Jake finally realized how far his family's entitlement had gone. They had no shame. They weren't even asking anymore. They were simply demanding. Jake told them to leave, and when they didn't, he stood his ground. The manipulation and guilt-tripping were exhausting, but Jake refused to cave. He had already given more than enough for years, and now it was time to walk away. Jake's actions were not just about money, they were about reclaiming his own life and his own worth. He had been used for so long, expected to give without receiving anything in return. His parents had always taken him for granted, and now, when he chose to take a step back, they saw him as the villain. But Jake didn't care. He had chosen to prioritize himself, and for the first time in his life, he felt free. Jake's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-worth and setting boundaries. Sometimes, family can become toxic, and it's necessary to step away in order to protect your own mental and emotional health. Family should be built on mutual respect and love, not on one person constantly sacrificing for the other. Jake chose to stop being the doormat, and in doing so, he found his peace. Jake had always been the responsible son, the one his parents relied on for support and care, while his younger brother, Eric, never had to lift a finger. For years, Jake managed his parents' finances, ensured their home was in good shape, and took care of their basic needs. Despite his unwavering dedication, his younger brother, Eric, did nothing but coast through life, relying on the support and pampering of their parents. Yet, Jake believed that family was about helping each other, even when it meant sacrificing his own time and energy. His actions were out of love, a genuine desire to make sure his parents were comfortable, even though his brother seemed to get all the rewards. However, everything changed one day when Jake discovered, quite by accident, the contents of his parents' will. It was a typical day at their house, where Jake was helping his father with paperwork. As he scanned through some documents, he came across the will, and when he read it, his world turned upside down. His parents had left everything to Eric, the house, their savings, and the property they had worked so hard for. There wasn't a single mention of Jake, except for vague phrases about how they loved both their sons equally. This betrayal hit Jake like a ton of bricks. After all the years of hard work, the money he had contributed, and the sacrifices he had made, his parents had chosen to reward their lazy, entitled son, Eric. Jake, who had kept them afloat financially, had been left with nothing. He had been the one to pay their bills, fix their house, and even make sure they had groceries. And yet, Eric, who had never worked, never contributed, and had been pampered by their parents, was the one who inherited everything. The discovery shattered Jake's trust in his parents, leaving him feeling completely unappreciated and betrayed. Jake confronted his father about the will, but his father gave a weak excuse, telling him it was complicated. Jake's mother, when asked, said that he didn't need the inheritance because he was independent and had a good job, while Eric struggled and needed their support. Her justification was maddening. It became clear to Jake that they saw him as nothing more than a financial lifeline, someone to rely on when things were tough, but not someone they truly valued. They had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they planned to reward him, further reinforcing the toxic dynamic. Determined not to be their personal ATM any longer, Jake decided to stop providing for them. He stopped paying the mortgage, buying groceries, and fixing the house. He wanted them to experience the consequences of their actions, to see what it felt like when the safety net they had relied on for so long was gone. His parents, expecting him to return to his role as the family's financial provider, reached out to him for money, but Jake stood firm. He refused to bail them out anymore. Eric, of course, jumped into the mix, accusing Jake of being a drama queen and demanding that he help the family. Jake's response was clear: if Eric was getting everything in the will, Then it was time for him to take responsibility. But Eric, ever the entitled one, had no real desire to contribute. Jake's parents tried guilt-tripping him, using phrases like, "family takes care of each other." But Jake was done. He was tired of being the one to always clean up the mess. The final straw came when his parents showed up at his apartment, uninvited and demanding money. Jake, feeling more manipulated than ever, refused to give in. He told them they had made their choice, and now they had to live with it. It was a turning point for Jake. He had finally stood up for himself after years of being taken for granted. The situation escalated when his parents and Eric took to social media to smear him, painting him as the villain for not helping them. Jake's heart sank as he saw the false narratives they were spreading, but he refused to let them control his life any longer. He decided to tell his side of the story, posting the truth on Facebook, clarifying that he had always been there for his family, but that it had been a one-sided relationship. He had given everything, and yet he had been treated like an afterthought. In the end, Jake's decision to walk away from the toxic dynamics of his family was liberating. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for his own well-being. His story is a reminder that sometimes we must set boundaries with family to protect our own mental and emotional health. Family should be built on mutual respect, not on one-sided sacrifice. Jake's message is clear: self-respect comes first, and no one should be used or taken for granted, not even by family. The story of Jake's experience with his family carries a powerful message about the importance of boundaries, respect, and self-worth. In life, especially as we grow older, it's easy to fall into the trap of giving everything to others, be it family, friends, or loved ones, without receiving the same level of care or respect in return. Jake's situation highlights how, at some point, we must learn to stand up for ourselves, even when it feels uncomfortable. As we age, it's crucial to understand that true family support should be based on mutual respect and understanding, not on the assumption that we will always be there to clean up others' messes. Jake's decision to finally set boundaries with his family is a lesson in self-respect and personal empowerment. It reminds us that we should never sacrifice our well-being or happiness just to meet the expectations of others. Life is too precious to spend it feeling unappreciated or taken for granted. In our later years, we have the wisdom to know that relationships should be reciprocal, and it's okay to step back and prioritize our own needs. By doing so, we allow ourselves the peace and dignity that we deserve. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this best Reddit story. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Silent Wars for more exciting content. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our future videos. See you in the next one.